There's a famous expression which says, when life gives you lemons, make lemonade. And I'm about to make lemonade. If lemonade is a fantastic discussion, because I'm about to talk to literally the most famous lemon in America. He's one of the biggest TV journalists in modern times. He just started a new initiative called The Don Lemon Show. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Don Lemon.
Hi, Josiah. How are you?
I'm doing
The,
well.
the
How are you,
most
sir?
famous lemon? Wow. I mean,
You
maybe that's
are.
true.
You are.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think like Jack Lemmon, the famous actor from ages ago. He's long gone.
Different spellings, different spellings. He was 2M, two
He was
M's.
2M. So you are, in fact, the most famous lemon and perhaps in
Yeah.
all of U.S. history. How does it feel to have
No,
that
well,
appellation?
Meadowlark. Meadowlark was pretty famous.
I still feel like,
Liz
yeah.
Lemon was pretty famous, but she's
Yeah,
not
but
real.
she's not real. Precisely. That's a great. Do you love 30 Rock? Are you like a big
I
TV buff?
love 30 Rock. When this summer after I left CNN, I went back and watched the entire series from the very beginning.
That show to me, it's up there with like Frasier in terms of like its replayability. Like it's constantly
Yeah.
rewatchable. That's good. It's so funny to see that like TV journalists actually have hobbies outside of like reporting and commentating. You watch TV, maybe go to the movies. You do stuff that like civilians do, Don?
I do, and I watch shows on YouTube like yours.
Now that's intensely flattering, and you should do that more often. You hear that, everybody? Don Lemon is a fan of pondering politics. Yeah. So listen, I mean, there's a lot going on with you personally, you professionally, the world in general. Let's talk first about the new project, the Don Lemon Show. So obviously, the vast majority of people know you from your time at CNN. So for those who know CNN Don Lemon, how would you explain the Don Lemon Show to people who know you from that body of work?
Well, I think it's if you know that show, then you know that show, right? And you know me from CNN. The only thing I can tell you is, and I think it's the most important part, is that you're going to get more of me, and you're going to get more of my guests. And Josiah, it's really interesting because I've had a couple people on who have had on the old show on CNN, and it's interesting. Just I can just let them talk and without having to rush to get to the commercial break or to get so many things in because I'm trying to get in 5 things and I only have 5 minutes with them. So you're going to get to know the guests better. It's going to be more in depth. We don't have to worry, as I said, when I started the show, we don't have to worry about the hall monitors. I don't have to worry about what people are going to say or think who are up in the C-suites. We can really have a real conversation. So that's what you're going to get, and I think people are already loving it.
No, that's great. I mean, I've seen your first two episodes. I think a third one just dropped, but I saw the one obviously with Elon Musk, which we will talk about, the one with Kara Swisher as well, and all of these have been great. Do you feel liberated? Does it feel strange that the different format, having more intimate conversations versus the CNN model or the mainstream legacy media model?
Do I feel more liberated? Absolutely. I mean, I get to paint this canvas however I want to paint it. And, not many people get to change sort of careers. And it's not exactly a change. I'm still in media, but not many people get these opportunities. And I am learning to do something that's completely different, at least in the media field, than before. And so I'm getting to exercise and use different muscles than I had before, and really grow it from the bottom. Because YouTube, people probably don't understand, is, I'm on YouTube, but I'm also on other streaming platforms. But it is really a ground up sort of operation, right? It's a community that you really have to prove yourself in, right? So people are part of the YouTube community, and then they say, well, prove your worth, show your worth. And I really like that. I had all of this, in cable news, people knew who I was, and I had a history, of shows and content and, work behind me. But in this sphere, I don't. And so it's interesting to me to be able to see how I'm going to grow it, how I'm going to grow the audience. And so far it's going really well.
Did you, knowing that there would be challenges transitioning from mainstream legacy media to what they call alternate media, was there ever a point where you're like, to heck with it, I'm just going to do something else, or I'm going to pick a different career, different hobbies? Was there ever an alternate path for Don Lemon in the year or 6 to 8 months, however long it was between leaving CNN and the Don Lemon Show?
Well, in the beginning, I had no idea. And that's why I said I'm going to take the summer off. I was like, man, who has this opportunity? This is, instead of looking at, something as a failure, I said, this is an opportunity for me to figure out what I want to do with the rest of my life, what I want the next chapter to be. So I didn't know. I just went and said, hey, it could be whatever. Someone could call me and say, we want you to work for, Goldman Sachs. I'm just making something up. And I would have considered it. Or, as when Elon Musk and, reached out and said, we want you to come for X. I was like, no, I'm not doing that now. And I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm going to take the summer off. And so I did that. And then I decided, what was interesting to me, it just sort of naturally, my media diet changed. And I started listening to more podcasts. I started watching more streaming shows. I started watching less legacy media, broadcast and cable. And I went to where my interests took me. And so my interests at the end of the day, I said, you know what? I get to build this, and I have a better opportunity to build in the part of the business that is growing rather than shrinking. And I also get to create what I want to create. And I also get to own it. And I get to work for myself. And so I never, I didn't have the opportunity to really consider something that different. But if it had presented itself, of course, I would have. This is
Fair
what
enough.
presented itself.
So if Fox News would have called, would Don Lemon have heard them out?
I don't mind going into the lion's den, if you want to call Fox News that. But if they had called me up and said, hey, we want you to come here and we want you to do what you do and be yourself, and that you don't have to, be a pretend conservative or restrict yourself in your thinking and your political leanings and beliefs, and I would have considered it. I'm not saying I would have done it, but yeah, sure, why not?
Fair enough. I mean, Jessica Tarlov could use some backup on Fox News, that's for sure.
Jessica's holding her own. She's doing quite well, I think. I really love watching her.
She is superhuman. She really is. Yeah. She's constantly taking on 4v1. You said you called it a lion's den. I recall vividly when there were rumblings about you making a deal with X or Twitter or whatever we're calling it, the artist formerly known as Twitter. I think you made a Prince reference in your discussion with Musk.
He didn't get it. I don't think he got it.
Music, I mean, it's way too joyful for him. And by the way, I should tell you full disclosure, and you're probably not surprised if you watch this channel, I'm not a fan of Elon Musk. You don't have to endorse my views, but there may be a little bit where I pick on Elon Musk, just full disclosure. But yeah, I mean, like there were rumblings, I recall vividly at the time, like, oh, we lost Don Lemon. He has converted to the right. Don, were you surprised to hear that you converted to a conservative?
Well, what was surprising to me was everyone thought, because that I had been red pilled, right? And I was like, what does that mean? I had to figure out what being red pilled meant. But people thought because I was going sort of, so to speak, into the lion's den, that they thought that I was going to change who I was. And that's just not who I am. So I kind of laughed at people. There were several streamers or YouTubers or whatever you want to call them. That's the only option that he has. That's the only thing that he can do is against us. They go and then they come back conservative and it's a grift or whatever. And I was just like, ha ha ha, you're out of your mind. You have no idea what you're talking about. Which most of the time people have no idea what they're talking about. They're just speculating.
Yeah, and when they don't know what they're talking about, trust me, then they start YouTube channels like mine and they just BS their way through.
But I was surprised by that. Yeah.
Yeah. To that point though, I will say I think it's fair for people to have generally had concerns, because maybe not about you in particular, but it seems like we see this quite a bit it's not uncommon, I should say, for people to, I don't want to say sell out, but the lure of a contract, a lure of a deal may influence a person's politics or their coverage, even though you knew it was laughable for you, because obviously you knew how you were going to be true to yourself. And I think you proved it. Whether people like it or not, I think you proved in that inaugural interview with Elon Musk that your politics have not meaningfully changed. But prior to that, were you sympathetic somewhat? Did you say, I understand why people might be concerned because this has happened before, or no?
Absolutely. And I see it all the time. And to me, when that happens, listen, people can change. I think people can change their minds. I think people's political leanings change over time. I remember there was a time, when I, was a bit more conservative. There was also a time where I was a bit more liberal. There's, I think that can change over time, but I don't think you change the core of who you are. And when I see that happening, to me, it's just, it just screams grift. And I think people stop taking you seriously, and they don't become as engaged with you or find you as interesting to engage with when you do things like that. So yes, I have seen people, and I find it, it's sad. It's like, well, this is obviously a grift, because I have seen the grift up close and personal when I was in cable news, especially, the MAGA folks who were, you know, traditional conservatives, and then became never Trumpers, and then they realized they had to go along to get along, or by becoming, a spokesperson for MAGA, that they got to jump to the front of the line. Yeah, I've seen the grift up close and personal, and that would never happen to me. But yes, I can understand why people thought it would, and I think it's embarrassing when it happens.
Before the Elon Musk interview went live, was part of you thinking, guys, just you wait till you see this? If you have any doubts about where my positions are, or whether or not I'm going to throw Elon Musk a softball interview, were you thinking to yourself, just you wait till you see this?
No, I wasn't thinking that, because honestly, I've heard the Elon apologists and his like minions like, oh, it was a gotcha interview, and I went in with an agenda. I didn't. I'll tell you what I went in, and I wasn't thinking like I'm going to go and get him on politics. I went into this with my eyes open, right? I knew who Elon Musk was, but I also I went in with it with the best of intentions. My intentions were honest and pure. I wanted people on that platform to hear a different perspective, and I wanted Elon Musk to be the first interview, because he claims to be a free speech absolutist. And I said, okay, if he has me on this platform and he's encouraging me to do it, and he wants me to be a distribution partner with him. By the way, he wasn't my boss. For all the people saying he was my boss and he fired me, that's not true. He chased me, he encouraged me and enticed me to come on the platform, him and his management team. And it was a distribution partner. And you're in this business, and it just means someone's going to amplify your work on their platform. And so I wanted people to get to know me, and I wanted people to get to know him, and I thought people would get to learn something about themselves if they could see us in my inaugural interview, in the initial interview, of us, people from different perspectives, different worldviews, actually hashing it out, having a conversation, me interviewing him explaining himself, yada yada yada, and they would go, oh, that's how you do it. Okay. I don't agree with Don, but I can see why he thinks that, or how he may feel. We'll agree to disagree. Oh, I see Elon. Okay. He says he put some really, unusual things, so to speak, out on Twitter. All right. I see where he's coming from. I don't agree with it, but let's see where this conversation goes. Let's see how this continues. That didn't happen. So that's how I went into it. And I still believe that could happen, but people tell me it's naive for me to think that way, but
Well, so what's interesting is reading the comments on X or Twitter, or whatever we're calling it, or even the comments on your own YouTube channel when that video was uploaded. Obviously, whether you intended to or not, you kicked a hornet's nest, my friend. And did that surprise you? And how has it felt? Because you have a reputation for being a really chill guy. So how does it feel when you've got a lot of, like, a very devoted, shall we say, following of people who are now intensely furious with you at a time when this new project is getting off the ground? How do you square all that? Do you love it? Does it fill you with anxiety? Are you indifferent?
I mean, look, it depends on the day, but none of those things. I mean, nothing. It's nothing that serious. Look, I have been doing this similar thing. I was in cable news for a long time. And I was also in broadcast news. So I've been doing this for 25, 30 years. So look, I have a very thick skin. I'm not afraid of anyone. I've interviewed people from presidents, as I say, from presidents to convicts to serial killers to, murderers, all kinds of people. And I'm not afraid of anyone. I'm certainly not afraid of Elon Musk, as you probably learned in that interview. And I approached that interview the same way that I approached other interviews. It's just to get to learn something about the subject. And really, interviews are really easy if you think about it. All you have to do is put the subject's own words and actions and work in front of them and just ask them a question about it. If they can't answer that question, something is wrong. So I didn't No, it actually does not bother me. This is something new that I'm going to try. It's going to be successful, and we'll see. Hopefully, I'll be doing this for a long time, and if you know, life may have something else for me. That's how I approach life. This is what I'm doing now. This is what I'm interested in. This is what I'm going to work hard on, and that's it. I don't worry about the noise and Elon's minions. I do see some of the comments. I don't usually go into the comments, but because this is new, I have been looking at some of it, and people have been coming up to me on the streets like, "Yeah, go, that's great. Oh, I love your interview." And then I look online, and people are like, "Oh, he slammed you, Don." And I'm like, "Okay, I don't know what you were watching, but that's your opinion. Go for it."
It's funny because I suppose you said when you went into the conversation you knew who Elon Musk was. I mean, obviously you were not strangers to him. You were aware anytime he's either the richest man in the world, the third richest person in the world, and he's constantly opining things on Twitter or X. During the course of the conversation, did he say anything that surprised you, either in terms of the substance of the question? I don't think many of his answers were substantive. That's me. But either on the substance or the style, did Elon Musk ever surprise you for better or worse during that conversation?
He did surprise me on, when he said that I think I talked about this. I don't know if I put that video up yet, that we all came from slaves, and therefore, we should sort of get over the conversation about slaves. That was very about race. It was surprising to me because what it was insinuating is that we should just move beyond. And it sort of reminded me of this whole idea about not teaching about race and history in our schools. Um, and so that part was probably the most surprising to me. And the other thing was when asked, a question about the evidence out, like, diversity, equity, and inclusion, about Duke University, about all these things, he couldn't really answer, and he became upset. And I was like, there is no evidence for what you're saying. And he just couldn't bring himself to admit or believe that there was no evidence for it. And so finally he just sort of resulted to, hey, people in the comment section, they are going to tell you what the evidence is. And I said, well, if you don't really know the evidence and you don't know it to be true, why are you putting it out? And he couldn't seem to understand. He couldn't square that. And it was surprising to me because someone said to me, you couldn't understand that it was a hypothetical. And I said, yeah, I could actually understand it was a hypothetical. I actually told him it was a hypothetical. So why are you putting out a hypothetical if it has not happened and there is no evidence of it? Then why put it out in the universe? And so their logic is not logicking. It's not making sense. So,
no, not at all. I mean, and I should say you brought that up, that I think a couple of days after that interview went live, Duke's medical college issued a public statement saying, listen, it didn't address specifically, like it didn't like at Elon Musk, but it contradicted exactly his insinuation. Oh, it did?
It said that they put out a statement. Well, at least the article from the Duke, I think it was a Chronicle, and their headline said Duke University refutes or something the something about Elon Musk and Ben Shapiro's assertion that their medical standards are being lowered, and it's not. And then it explained. Yeah, I have it. I can find the headline for you. But
that'd be great. See, I saw the brief statement on Twitter from Duke Medical College, and they said, contradicted, like, listen, we still use. We have not lowered our standards. The standards are the same for admissions and graduation. So a complete contradiction explicitly of what Musk said. If they name dropped him, that's hilarious. I love that.
This is it right here.
Uh-oh. There it is. Oh, Duke. Yep. Elon Musk.
Duke School of Medicine denies lowering admission standards for DEI goals as alleged by Ben Shapiro and Elon Musk. And that's a Duke Chronicle. Yeah. So.
That is, wow. So they name drop. That's what I'm saying. So like here he is getting contradicted immediately by the actual authority in question. Then earlier today, I don't know if you had a chance to look at this given the schedule that you've had this morning, but a district court out of California just tossed a lawsuit of Musk about, his lawsuit against the Center for Digital Hate. saying, listen, the statement was pretty brutal. It says sometimes, this is in the first paragraph, by the way, sometimes it's unclear what's driving a litigation, and only by reading between the lines of a complaint can one attempt to surmise a plaintiff's true purpose. Other times, a complaint is so unabashedly and vociferously about one thing, there can be no mistaking it. This case represents the latter circumstance. This case is about punishing the defendants for their speech. So circling it back to the premise of your very interview with Musk, which is that he's positioned himself as a free speech absolutist. Do you think he has sufficiently demonstrated after all this, after your interview, that he is not a free speech absolutist? Do you think that is perfectly abundantly clear now?
Yeah. Of course it is. But I mean, he will never admit it, and his, people will never admit it. I mean, just look at how he, with the community, what do you call it? I guess a post, I forget what the exact terminology is. What is it called? The community notes, the fact checks on there. It's called community notes. When they fact check him, many times, and journalists have complained about it, and users on the platform, that the community notes will go up for a little bit and then they disappear when it comes to things that Elon Musk has put out that's not factual. So no, he doesn't. And then look, people will tell you that they feel that their content is being throttled or suppressed and on that platform. And so look, I don't know if anyone can ever prove it. I don't know if their analytics are, if they're that transparent about their analytics. They say it's open source, but I mean, come on. So I think he's absolutely proved that he is not, especially when you're trying to sue someone for just writing a story or reporting on something that is happening, and again using facts that they have researched. The next case I think is Media Matters. Right, he's suing them for writing a story saying that advertisers were upset because their advertising was running next to or alongside of hate content or hateful content.
Sure,
that's an advertiser's choice. I don't know why he's suing them if it's reporting and if the reporting is accurate.
Yeah, so the frustrating thing about all this is this was so easily avoidable. Just don't position yourself as a free speech absolutist, in my opinion. No, there is no such thing. There is no such thing. And so when somebody says that, especially somebody so prominent, so powerful, somebody who has the reputation, I mean, he is deified by millions of people for brilliance and genius. These are appellations that are ascribed to Musk. Why would you say you're a free speech absolutist when it's so demonstrably false? Is it a lack of self-awareness, do you think? Or is it that he has conceived of a situation where it's actually, no, it's not a violation of free speech or the ethos of free speech to sue people or to depress certain accounts? If I remember correctly, when you made your X tweet about the interview, I don't think it got that much engagement relative to what you usually see about Musk and somebody with your following. I'm not saying that that's, I'm not alleging anything, but just asking questions, So what do you think it is? Is it it's just a lack of self-awareness, or do you think it's different? The standards are different when it's him.
Well, I think it's the latter. Maybe it's both. I think maybe it's a lack of self-awareness, or the standards are different. And I think that, he's used to people saying yes, 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 and loving him all the time. Listen, Elon Musk is a very accomplished person. He's done extremely, he's done things that are extremely important to the world, right? And no one can deny that. But also he puts out things, people listen to him. He's this like weird combination of like Rupert Murdoch meets Howard Hughes, meets, whatever other mogul, Henry Ford or Rupert Murdoch or whatever, John
I think the Howard Hughes one was spot on. Yeah.
He's like and so it's tough to ignore him. But what he says it's really important because people pay attention. So what he puts out there, I think that he should make sure that it's true and factual before he does it. That was it. And also some of the things that were content that was on his platform, according to his own rules, that content should have been removed. And so I asked him about that. He got upset. So I think, yes, it is lack of self-awareness, and the rules don't apply to hhim, especially I think there was something about Elon Jets or something where he took that off or whatever. If you believe in free speech, then you believe that people can do that as well. I mean, it wasn't illegal.
No.
So And I also just think it's just pure, plain hypocrisy. And I think, look, it's his, he owns it. He can do with it what he wants. And it is what it is. That's what's happening.
Yeah, no, I mean, like I said, I think it's just a problem of his own making. If he had not advertised himself as a free speech absolutist, there would be no issues here because
But he
to
doesn't
your
think it's a
point,
problem. Remember,
yeah,
during the interview, he said, I don't have to answer these questions. I don't have to answer reporters' questions. I'm only speaking to you because this is an interview you asked for and you're on the platform. That's it. So basically what he's saying is that I'm not accountable. I do what I want.
yeah. Well, last Elon Musk question before I turn to broader politics. Can we expect a follow-up interview with Elon Musk anytime soon?
Why don't you ask
When's
him? Why don't you
part
call
two
him up and ask
dropping?
him? Look, I would. I mean, look, I have nothing against Elon Musk. Again, my interview was not a gotcha interview. I asked him very simple questions. And if you can't, in the moment, answer questions about what you put out in the universe or just your own, I was just saying, you said this. This is what you did. You tweeted this. You've said this about this subject. What do you think? Why did you do it? Now, if you can't answer face to face, I don't know what to
No.
tell you. But now he's on, on Twitter, responding to people, encouraging people to, to make fun of me or whatever. That's fine, whatever. But I just wonder, why couldn't you do it in person, man to man? Why do you have all this keyboard courage when you didn't have this courage when I was sitting right in front of you? That says a lot about you.
Yeah,
I wasn't
it's
afraid,
very
are you?
different.
So I would sit down with him again. Certainly I would. I'm not afraid to
Sure.
do that.
Sure. I think the hesitance is on the other side. I don't think it's reciprocal at all. You're talking about gotcha interviews and interview style. One thing I've noticed following one of your peers, Mehdi Hassan, as well as like British media. So there's a guy named James O'Brien over in the United Kingdom. I've read somewhere that there seems to be a difference in the American approach to journalism, generally speaking, versus British, where the British tend to take a more adversarial posture with their
Hmm.
guests. Like the assumption is like, I'm going to ask you tough questions. I'm obligated to ask you tough questions, where here in America, it runs the gamut. In terms of, I mean, in my opinion, I know you weren't going for a gotcha interview, but I thought you asked a tough question from a civil but adversarial posture. I liked that. Is that the tone that the Don Lemon show will set for some interviews, all interviews? Like, can we expect that it's going to take, you're going to be asking tough questions of your guests?
Yeah, well, it depends on the interview. It depends on the subject. I just don't want people
Fair.
to come on and try to lie to me, right? And if you
Hmm.
say something that is controversial or um, it depends on who you are in the platform. Like, I would love to get Mr. Beast on, right? And there's no need
Hmm.
to, you know, to um, to pepper Mr. Beast with questions about politics or whatever. I mean, it's like fun. I want to talk to him about innovators, about creators, about his success in this business, about fun things that because he's all like love and fun. So there would be no
Hmm.
controversy to speak to him about. So it depends on who it is. If it's an actor, I'm going to talk about their art and their craft. If it's people who lean into politics, I'm going to talk to them about that. If it's people who own a huge social media platform and they put out controversial things without evidence, I'm going to talk to them about that. So it depends on the interview subject. But I don't expect it to be adversarial. You say adversarial. I didn't think that like the Elon interview was adversarial. I was just surprised that in the middle of the interview, when I started to ask him questions about what he tweeted about or about things that he said and done, that he became so increasingly uncomfortable that it made it look like it was adversarial when it actually wasn't. It was just a simple interview. You said this about DEI. What my research shows that it is not true. Where's your evidence?
Well,
Duke
it could be
University
true,
is doing
Don,
it.
right?
Yeah, but it could
Yeah.
be Duke University.
Yeah.
And I was like,
Yeah.
and I knew what he was saying about Duke University. I'm like, but there's no evidence
Hmm.
of it. Like Duke University is saying that, blah, 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 blah. And then he became upset because you keep saying there's no evidence. But then in the comment section after this, and I was like, but that's not fact. Those aren't facts. And that's really hard for people who are not used to dealing with facts and with I guess, basic true information, it's really hard for them to be to actually be held accountable. So I was shocked. I was like, wow, he's really getting upset. And I kept saying, why are you, I don't understand why you're upset. Why are you getting mad at this? This is just like a simple question. And then he kept, maybe that upset him even more. I had no idea.
Yeah, it seemed to be a visible unraveling. So changing topics real quick. This is also something that's happened since your interview with Elon Musk, but has nothing to do with him. And I'm sure you've seen this. Former RNC chairwoman Ronna McDaniel was
Ronna
hired by
McDaniel.
NBC. Yeah. So again, and you don't have to weigh in on this if you don't want to, but I would love to know what your thoughts are, because there has been a severe and, in my opinion, appropriate backlash to her hiring as an analyst. But others say, Josiah, listen, she gives them access to Republican leaders. That's important. And we need to hear voices from the other side. I just don't think that that's what that really is. What do you think?
Well, I think that for me, I kind of like what Kara Swisher said to me when I said, hey, I'm going to go into the Lions Den. Hopefully I can, have people on X or Twitter listen to and hear my point of view and blah, blah, blah. She goes, it's never going to happen. He's never going to do it. So I sort of feel the same way about Ronna McDaniel. There are Republicans, of course, who you can have on. And I do think that there's a danger in echo chambers, and you should hear from both sides or all sides on the political spectrum. It's very important to have an informed electorate. Someone like Ronna McDaniel doesn't do that. Ronna McDaniel helped Trump by playing along with the fake electoral scheme. Ronna McDaniel, many will say, is a pathological liar, also who conspired to overturn the 2020 election. Ronna McDaniel tries to be all things to all people. She dropped the Romney in her name because, having her, I think it's her uncle, right? That's Mitt Romney. Like that wasn't that, that didn't help her with the MAGA crowd. And Ronna McDaniel is not even she's not even close to the Republican leaders in Congress. She doesn't really have that much sway, none now, in the Republican Party. So I don't see what she actually brought to the table as it relates to NBC, except for being sort of a living, breathing example that is an insult to the journalists there. Because how can you expect your audience to get anything out of someone who doesn't tell the truth, and someone who backed an insurrectionist, someone who Republicans believe, right, sort of rigged the election towards Donald Trump in the primaries? How can they? What does that offer their viewers? So
I completely agree.
Yeah, I mean, look, she's an election denier. She helped with that. She supported an insurrectionist. She didn't speak out. She's speaking out now on some things. Why didn't you do it when you actually were in power? She actually got pushed out by the very person that she supported. So I don't see what she brings to the table.
Well, and to your point, there's actually kind of a nice connection there, which also, again, not to go back to Musk, but that this idea that people in positions of power and influence should wield it responsibly. You could easily make the case that Musk doesn't. You could easily make the case that Ronna McDaniel doesn't, because she effectively gave answers saying, like, listen, I was the head of the RNC. What was I supposed to do at the time? And it's like, use your power to help correct the issue within the RNC with respect to election denialism and whatnot.
Right.
So no, I completely agree. Last question on her. I don't think she should have been hired as an analyst, and she should not be part of the institution of really any credible network. But I actually do think there's merit in interviewing Ronna McDaniel. Do you agree with that or disagree, or do you don't think she should be interviewed either?
150%. I think you can interview her. But paying her to come on, look, NBC can do whatever they want. Let me just say this. They can do whatever they want. My personal opinion and my personal perspective is that it was not an ideal choice. And I don't even work there. And look at what the journalists at NBC are saying about it. They don't like it. Even Rachel Maddow at MSNBC, one of the most high-profile people at the network, perhaps even higher profile than their main people on the NBC channel, not the MSNBC channel, and who is really relevant when it comes to politics in this country. You heard what she had to say about it. She did not think it was a good opinion, a good decision. And then compared it to fascists in American history. So me saying, I didn't think it was the right decision. And look, if Rachel Maddow is saying it, then I think that NBC needs to rethink that decision. And I think they're going to probably make a different decision. And I think you'll see some changes in management because of it as well.
So now that we're transitioning into the 2024 election, let me ask you real quick, and then I've got a big question about media standards in general I'm dying for you to weigh in on. But you had an interview on Sirius XM with Dan Abrams of Mediaite, in which you weighed in, you opined, and I love to hear it, about your preference for President Biden over Donald Trump in this election cycle. Yeah. You also said that that's not something you would have or could have said on CNN. So again, my question is, how does it feel? Does it feel liberating or strange? Don Lemon is weighing in on a presidential election. Is it both? Is it weird and liberating?
It is liberating and it is weird. I don't think it's actually that weird. I think it's good. Transparency is good. Listen, I represented a company and a brand before that I could not do that. But I think it was very clear how I felt about President Trump. I just could not say so much how I felt about and about the MAGA movement because I think it's dangerous. So I'm not endorsing anyone. But when asked, what do you think about the current situation, I expressed my point of view about it. And, it was a whole idea about, is Joe Biden, mentally capable, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, well, Joe Biden and Donald Trump are, pretty close to the same age. And I think, Joe Biden, he has issues. Everyone has issues. No one is a perfect person, nor will they be a perfect leader or a perfect president. He has a stutter. He has to deal with that. He's getting up there. Okay, fine. He even talks about that. But I think he surrounds himself with good people. And I think he surrounds himself with people who are at least trying to do the right thing for the country. He believes in democracy, and so do the people around him. And that is the most important thing at this point. So whoever becomes president after the 2024 election, in 2028 and beyond, if Joe Biden is elected to become president again, or reelected, I should say, at least the next person will have a full, intact democracy to work with. On the other hand, if Donald Trump is elected president, I'm not so sure that would happen because he has said as much that he has dictatorial traits and leanings, and he says he's going to, give him hell. He's attacked institutions. He's been doing it for, when he was president and before. And so I think that I believe in democracy. I don't believe in political parties. And there's one political party right now and one administration that believes in democracy, and that is the Democratic Party, and that is the Biden administration. And so I would place my bets on them, with keeping our country in order and keeping our democracy and our republic intact.
Listen, I think that's a perfectly fair and substantive answer. It's one that I clearly echo too. And for what it's worth, I love the fact that you felt liberated to articulate. It's one of the things, again, to reference one of your peers, Mehdi Hassan, which I like, which is that he's not going to pretend that these two sides are equal. He can't do it. He would actually consider it a dereliction of journalistic credibility to do so. And it seems like you were leaning in that direction as well, which gets me to the broader question. You mentioned, perceptions about President Biden's age. The thing that frustrates me, because that is something we hear about quite a bit, those same polls, and I know you know this, also say a majority of Americans also think that Donald Trump is not mentally competent to be president. Now, there's a disparity in the perception, but it's always framed by mainstream media and certainly right-wing media that basically Donald Trump is a criminal and Joe Biden is senile. When in fact, if you look at the polling, it's actually people think Donald Trump is a senile criminal. And so in my perception, I'm saying that's the perception, Don, just saying. In the media, it seems to be an asymmetry. It seems like they bend over backwards to make a false equivalence in order to avoid the perception of liberal bias, which, by the way, they get tarred and feather with anyway. So you are in a unique position, given your tenure and experience with legacy media. Now you're transitioning into alternate media. You are unshackled, unburdened. Am I crazy? Am I making this up? Or is there an asymmetry in even mainstream media that seems to grade Republicans and Trump on a curve?
You've been listening to my phone calls. You must have a bug in my apartment or whatever, because I say that all the time. I say that, people in the media are so afraid of being called liberal or what have you that they let their opponents and their competition define them. And you shouldn't do that. Democrats do the same thing. They're afraid of being called a name or people, perceiving them a certain way. Yes, and it's a false equivalence. I don't believe in false equivalence, and I do believe that people in media, especially now, the rules are different, and what's at stake is very important. And I think you should be a bit more transparent about it. It's okay. It's okay to say we don't believe in fostering lies. We don't believe in putting people on who lie and giving them an equal platform as people who are telling the truth. That's not liberal. Now, conservatives or people, MAGA folks will say that, but just because they say it or they criticize you for it does not make it true. And so, and I think, listen, Rachel Maddow said as much when she talked about the Ronna McDaniel. And so we're at a very critical point right now where it is important for the media to understand where they are and the media to understand that there is a fight for democracy, and for the media to understand their role in, I hate this word platforming, but I think amplifying the voices of people who are trying to ruin that democracy, and amplifying the voice of people who are election deniers, and amplifying the voice of people who are insurrectionist supporters. I think there is a danger in that. And unless the media grows some cojones and are able to stand up to the people who criticize them for it, or for the extreme right wing of the Republican Party, meaning the MAGA folks, then we're all in trouble. And it would be a dereliction, and it most likely will, if they don't get their acts together, or they don't realize that what is at stake by the time election time comes. But, election day comes. I think a lot of people, do realize that this is not like I'm generalizing here a bit, but I do think that there are a lot of people who in media who do realize that. I just want people who are, overly concerned with people thinking that they're in the middle. What is the middle? Who knows what the middle is? Who are not biased. Okay, what does that mean? Because everyone has a particular lens through which they view life and the world. And our experiences are different. I'm a gay Black man. I would assume that you're a heterosexual white man. Okay, fine. We're all Americans, but that doesn't mean that we have the same lens about life. It doesn't mean that we have the same experience. We walk different paths in America. We're part of the same country, but our paths are different. So I think that people should not be so concerned about, oh my gosh, you're biased, you're whatever. Okay, just tell the truth. That's the important part. It's not about being like in the middle of this screen or whatever. It's like, just tell the truth and stop trying to pretend that you want to give equal footing to one side who is upholding democracy and another side who is in the process of trying to tear it down, or allowing a group of people or a man or a political movement to tear it down.
Listen, yeah, okay, number one, I do have a bug in your apartment. You have a great singing voice, I might add, number one. But number two, I mean, I completely agree. This is this to me. So I don't consider myself a journalist. I'm a commentator. And I also want to see if you consider yourself different now, journalist versus commentator. I'm not on the ground reporting. I'm analyzing, I'm providing my opinion through a prism of political analysis and ideology. I make no bones about it. But to me, there's a danger of creating this false equivalence, grading disparate sides on a scale, because to your point about being called a liberal, they're going to call you a liberal anyway, Don. Like, there's nothing you can do. That you could give this most softball interview to Donald Trump on Monday if he ever shows up on the Don Lemon Show, which, by the way, I'd love. You should try to make that happen, Don. I would love that. And then on Tuesday, if you happen to just acknowledge, I don't know, that maybe he shouldn't have classified documents or national defense information as a former president, give it back. If you say one bad thing about him, you're part of the liberal media again. Like, there's no satisfying those bad faith critics. So to me, I agree.
That happened with the Elon Musk interview. Again, I did not find any question that I asked difficult or targeted to any political leaning. It was just very simple questions about him and stuff that he said, and that's it. And so people are like, oh my gosh, you're a liberal lefty. You're doing the same thing you're doing on CNN, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, to me, it's shocking. But also, even he said, you're doing the same thing that you're doing on CNN. Well, isn't that why you wanted me to be on your platform, is because of my work on CNN? There's a former cable news host on his platform who's doing the same thing that he did on Fox News, and he has no problem with that.
That's very suspicious how that's the case. And it's that meme where it's like, I'm doing, if that's true, I'm doing the thing that you said you hired me for. And it's not like that. Not like, don't do it like that, Don.
Yeah, don't do it like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, listen, I want to be respectful of your time. I appreciate the time that you spent answering these questions. I feel like there could be a 4-hour dialogue with the stuff that you have to say, the experience you have on cable news, and really your thoughts on the 2024 election. So hopefully you will consider coming back in the future. But in the meantime, Don, where can people find you and the Don Lemon Show?
They can find the Don Lemon Show at the Don Lemon Show on YouTube. They can find me on Spotify. They can find me on iHeartRadio. They can find me on Apple Podcasts. They can find me on X. You can find me anywhere you get your streaming content and your podcast. So make sure you like and subscribe. Like and subscribe.
Yes, please like and subscribe. Oh, is there anything you can tease about upcoming content that not to put you on the spot? Is there anything in the pipeline?
So I know you're pondering politics, but not every guest will be politics. Right now, I have a guest on who's Monique, who seems to have a beef with everyone in Hollywood, and she talks about that. My next guest, which will drop on Wednesday, is Kevin O'Leary. And we have a very interesting conversation about politics, about the economy, about Elon Musk, about X, about TikTok, which he wants to buy. And then on Monday, D.L. Hughley comes on and he talks about everything politics. And one interesting point, he talks about why he thinks African-American men are attracted to Trump and the MAGA movement. Not all of them, but why some of them are now becoming attracted to that. And it's a very interesting conversation.
That is a wide range of guests, going from Kevin O'Leary to one of the funniest comedians of all time. It's going to be, will I laugh at all during the Kevin O'Leary interview? Will there be laughs? Will he entertain and amuse?
He will entertain and amuse. I'm not sure if it was intentional, but I'm sure you'll laugh. I'm sure you laughed at some of the Elon Musk interview, and that was not intentional.
A little bit. I sure did. Don, I really appreciate it. Thanks for the sneak peek into future content. Please like and subscribe and engage with Don on all social media platforms. I really appreciate it, Don. Thanks for stopping by.
Josiah, thank you very much. It's an honor, and I hope to see you soon. Be well.